Friends, a guten Erev Shabbos. As we're getting ready for Shabbos Chazak, we're completing an entire Sefer, which most of us have done at home. Definitely we'll miss Beis Menachem Mendel, the Baal Koida, Rabbi Yaakov, with his thundering, beautiful voice, the last three words, and the Chazak, Chazak. There's a story about a community where they had a problem. The Baal Koida customarily takes the Aliyah where there's the Toichacha. As we get ready for Chag HaShavuos, and similarly as we get ready for Rosh Hashanah, we read the Toichacha. And we don't want to call someone up, so we give it to the Baal Koida. In this town, the Baal Koida decided, no, I don't want to take it. I don't want to take it. What are you giving me? What kind of leave are you giving me? I have to take the blessings you sell for the highest bidder, and the opposite of blessings you give to me. I'm not taking it. If you don't want me, don't want me. I'm not taking this aliyah. It was all of a sudden it turned into a scene, a brouhaha in the shul. They didn't know what to do. So they went to the Rav. The Rav said, in the back of the shul, there was a very simple Jew. He was a kantonist. Nebuch served in the Tsar's army for 25 years. He was ripped away from his parents when he was a little child. He didn't know much, but he was a Jew, and he came to shul. He didn't know the Toichacha, not the Toichacha. He never got an aliyah. And finally, the rabbi called him up to get an aliyah. He was excited, and he came up, and they gave him the aliyah, the Toichacha. After davening, a few of the members came over to the Rav and said, this is not nice. He's a simple person. He doesn't understand what's going on. He never bids for an aliyah. He can't afford it. So today, when the Baal Koida doesn't want to take it, and it's the Toichacha, no one wants to get it, you give him the aliyah. So the Rav said, no, you don't understand. Let me explain it to you. The din is, Kol Masha Kone Evet, Kone Rabbi, that whatever a servant has belongs to his master. This kantonist is a servant to the Tsar. I think the Tsar deserves the Toichacha. So I figured, let me give it to the kantonist. The Tsar, well, he's not a man of his own. So the Tsar will get the Toichacha. The Tsar could deserve the Toichacha. He could take the curses. The Tsar could take the curses. Actually, the Alter Rebbe, in the Likutei Torah of today, the Chassidish Parsa says that even in the Pshat of the Toichacha is good. Because when the Jews when the Jews are going in Hashem's way, so then the entire curse goes on their enemies. So it's already, we see the blessing here. But the Alter Rebbe says there's more to it. Every single pasuk in the Toichacha is really a blessing. For example, the Alter Rebbe says that the pasuk says, "V'ofu eser noshem alachmechem v'achaltem v'loises bo." It'll take 10 women to bake you a piece of bread, and you will eat all that bread. You still will not be satisfied. The Alter Rebbe said that's not a curse. That's the biggest blessing. The esa koiches hanefesh. When a yid is full of love with Hashem, oyev kesef lo yizba kesef. Someone who loves money can never get enough money. Like David the Melech says, there's a small part in the person's body. If you're always going to make it hungry, it'll be satisfied. But if you're going to satisfy it, it'll always be hungry. When a Yid all of a sudden gets involved in learning Torah is the lechem, shtei lechem, chag HaShavuos, l'chulachem u'balachmi. The lechem is Torah. And when a Yid gets involved in learning Torah with 10 koiches hanefesh, v'chaltam alois bo. Oyev kesef lo yispas kesef. He could never satiate himself. He could never get enough of it because he's in such love with Hashem. He wants to become one with Hashem. And the more he learns, the more one he becomes, the more desire he has to come closer. And now we understand the story in Hayom Yom, that the story was that the Mittler Rebbe, that always would hear the Kriyas Torah from his father. And one year his father was out of town and he heard the Toichacha from a Baal Koida. And he was in such shock. He got sick from hearing the Toichacha, to the extent that when it came Yom Kippur, it was questionable if he was able to fast. So they asked him, but every year you hear the Toichacha, you hear it from your father. What happened this year that you went into such shock hearing all the Toichacha? He said, well, when the Tata leint is anders, my father hears it's something different. Because when the Alter Rebbe reads it, you hear the brocha. And for Chag HaShavuos, we're getting ready for Chag HaShavuos. And the last stop as we're getting ready for Chag HaShavuos is Lag BaOmer. The minhag is that we go out with the children out in the field. So I was looking at a place to go with the children. If you remember all the years when you went on the Bell Parkway, going, for example, to the airport, or you go to the oil, there was a place next to Pennsylvania Avenue. It always stunk. You would, close the windows, stop the air conditioning. It really had a foul smell. So they just opened up a park, a national park, called the Shirley Shishlon State Park. It just opened up, and it's fascinating. For about 30 years, this was the dumping ground. It was a landfill. New York City, the sanitation department, all the sanitation of the entire city of New York went there, got dumped there. It got dumped from 1956 till 1983. All the garbage of New York went there. That's why it stunk for years. So what they did was they covered it with a plastic, and they put the 100,000 trucks dumped about 4 feet of good soil. They planted it, and it's a beautiful mountains, over 400 acres, and you get a terrific view of New York and of the Verrazano Bridge. And there's trails, there's picnic areas, a gorgeous park. So it turns out that it was really true. One man's garbage is another man's national park. So sometimes there is something that stinks. It seems like garbage, but Basi Lagani, you could turn it into a garden. It seems like it's garbage, but you could actually turn it into a garden. Where the teichoche itself is a bracha. Not that it leads to a bracha. The teichoche itself is a bracha. There's a story I mentioned Sunday morning, and I realized it was a drop not accurate. So basically, there is one of probably a dozen Shilas Atshuvas Svarim today, the most authoritative Achronim, that talk about contemporary Shilas of the Chelkas Yaakov. The Chelkas Yaakov was Rabbi Yaakov Bereish, who was a Rav in Zurich. Fascinating story he writes in his short foreword to his Sefer. He was a Rav in Germany. He was a Rav in Duisburg on the Rhine. In 1933, he said that there was Motzei Shabbos Chof Aleph Adar Rishon. Chof Aleph Adar. And 5 Malachi Chabola entered his home, in other words, from the SS, and they gave him a very rough beating. And furthermore, on Chof Hei Adar, they had 10 o'clock in the morning, they had a parade in the city, and to humiliate the rabbi. He says, it was unbelievable. Thousands of people were sitting and cheering and standing and cheering as his hair was being pulled and his beard is being ripped off. And he was lucky that there was a German official who was friendly with him, and in the last minute snatched him out of their hands when they were about to send him to the death count in Dachau, and helped him escape. And he became the Rav in Zurich. Had he not gotten that beating, he would stay in Germany. Who knows what would happen with him? But because the SS gave him the beating, at the time he got that beating, he didn't know that that beating was really his ticket to life. So sometimes something that seems like a klola, it seems like the opposite of a bracha, but really it's a bracha. It's 407 acres of garbage, and it turns into a national park. So the Gemara says in Moyed Katan a story about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. We're coming straight of Lag BaOmer. So the Gemara tells us a story about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The 2 students of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Yochanan ben Amosai and Rabbi Yehuda ben Gedim, Tone Pashas Nadorim Bei Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It's a Gemara by Katan Daf Tes that the 2 students came to learn Pashas Nadorim by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The next morning when they were leaving his home, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said to his son, go get a blessing from these 2 people. They're great people. So go get a blessing from them. So they went, he said, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Omer le'lebrei, bnei Adam alolo anoshim shel tzurihem, zil gabayin de levorchucham. Go to these people and they will bless you. So he went, and they turned to the son of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and they said, here's the blessing. Be God's will that you should plant, but never cut. the produce. Should bring out, never take out, never bring in. Sounds like terrible things. Your home should be destroyed. You should live in a temporary dwelling. Your table should be turned upside down. You should not see a new year. When he came back to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai says, "No, you got a nice blessing?" They said, "What a nice blessing! Not only did I not get a blessing, they hurt me." So Reb Shimon say, "My Amrulach, what did they say?" So he told his father what they said. Amar Reb Shimon says, "Let me tell you, these are the greatest blessing. Tizerav said you should plant your seeds with your wife, and she should give birth to children, and they should never die. You plant and you never cut, chas v'shalom. You should bring in daughter-in-laws, and they should have nice life, and they should never chas v'shalom go away from you. And you should have daughters that go away from you and never come back home. They should live a good, long life with their husbands, b'shalom bayis. Your table should be always turned upside down because kinderlach are running around your house, and your table is turning upside down. And your oilam haba, don't worry, forget about your oilam haba, which is your temporary house. You should live a good life in this world. And you should never see a shana chadata, because a person, when he remarries, it's like a new thing, a new year. You should never know that. You should live with your wife, b'shalom bayis, a long life. So that the Mefarshim asked, why couldn't they give him a blessing? So the Pesach Enaim says a nice thing. He says that really it was exalted against the Rebbe Elazar ben Reb Shimon to have all these curses. But because they put him through the ringer and he had the pain, so his father was able to sweeten it, turn it into a blessing. Mashah says, nah, they just were lichadadan. They wanted to sharpen him. They wanted to test the son of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai to see if he gets the point that these were not curses, they were blessings. So Tzaddik says, based on what the Alter Rebbe says in today's Chassidish Pasha, the answer is simple. These were the deepest blessings they wanted to give him. How can you say a person should, all the children should grow up, Shomrei Torah, mitzvahs, the sons should always have shalom bayis, the daughters should never come back home, him and his wife should live a long life, b'shalom bayis, a sweet, healthy life. It couldn't come down in words of blessing. Just like the Alter Rebbe says, sometimes that something is so deep you can't verbalize it. So you say, you can't even say, the words of blessing can't even carry such a deep blessing. Therefore it came in the words that sound the opposite of a blessing. And that's really the message of this week's parsha. That's the Chassidish parsha. In other words, Api Nigla, all these curses are for our enemies of the Jewish people. But Api Chassidus, Api Pnimius HaTorah, from Lag BaOmer, from Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, the Reb Shimon Bar Yochai shines a light onto the Torah HaNiglis, that we see the nister in it, that what seems to be a mountain of garbage is a mountain of blessing. What is one man's garbage is another man's treasure. What seems to be a curse to the son of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai holds in it the deepest blessing. Many of us are stuck in the house already 2 months, and the kids are really turning the table upside down and inside out. But I've heard from many people that are seeing unbelievable blessing in this time, an unbelievable blessing in Avodas Hashem, an unbelievable connection to their children. They've never experienced. Some fathers who, I feel it myself. I've never experienced this closeness to my children. I never knew how much fun it is to jump on a trampoline. It really is a lot of fun to spend time with the children and with the family together. And the support that I feel from people, from friends that text or call, how are you doing? The fact that so many people in Beis Menachem Mendel are getting together for Farbrengen and Shiurim. The numbers had doubled and doubled again and doubled again. So what seems to be a situation in the last few moments in Golus that is, on the face of it, the opposite of a blessing, turns out to be the deepest blessing. The Eibishter zal helfen that this Shabbos, as we read the Teichocha, we shouldn't be reading it alone in our house. We should be hearing it on the Har HaBayis. We should hearing it from the Baal Koireh, from Melech HaMashiach himself. And just like the Mittal Rebbe said, Ad Tata Leintes, Herzach Anders. When our Father reads it, you hear it different. When we will hear it from Avinu Sheba Shamayim, from the Tata in Himmel, when our Tata in Himmel will call us back home to Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh, the Eibishter will help that this will happen Emitz Hashem this Shabbos, and we will hear the Parsha. We won't hear the opposite of blessing. We will hear and see the deepest blessing in the Teichoch itself. The Eibishter should help. We should see it in this Shabbos. And when the Mashiach will finish reading the Parsha, we will all thunder with unison. Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek. A guten Shabbos.